Hello everybody, I am open to our week 2 um, content. We will be really diving in this week to the main textbook. So we will be covering chapter 1 in the Harrington text, which is all about stress and health. So here is the to-do list for the week. What I will be doing each week with the chapters is posting objectives that I've kind of written out as to what you want to make sure you're understanding for each chapter. You don't need to respond to these questions and turn this in. This is not an assignment. It is meant as a study tool for you. So what some students have done in the past is copy and paste these objectives into a Word document, and then as they're reading or going through the lecture slides, they've filled in answers, and then they've used that sort of as their guide to study for the tests. So these are your objectives, and you can click here to listen to the podcast where I go over all of these objectives and kind of the ins and outs and what you should know pertaining to this chapter. Okay, here are the lecture slides that go along with chapter 1, which help zone in on key points and key elements. And as I've said in other podcasts, I'm not a big fan of just recording a lecture on the entire chapter. Normally, if I were teaching in person, we would be covering this content in segments over the course of few classes. Online, it has been my experience that most students don't listen or watch the recorded lectures, and it takes a lot of time to do them. And so I'm not a big fan of that. However, I am a big fan of posting little short blurbs on concepts. So as students have questions, let's go back up here. Let's say you want to know more about the general adaptation syndrome, or you don't quite understand it, you want a little more explanation. That's when I will go ahead and I will post like a 2 to 3 minute short podcast burst detailing a little bit more about GAS. As proposed by Hans Selye. And so these are a little bit more effective because then I can zone in on questions and areas that students actually have, and those tend to be viewed very often and more so, and just are all around a better fit. So you can count on that happening. As you have questions, email me, let me know, and I will post those little podcast bursts as we kind of go through the chapters, and hopefully that will help a little bit. I've posted some videos for you to watch this week. This is a just overall view of how stress affects your health, different aspects of it. It's a nice video. It's engaging, different. So hopefully that will capture your attention. And then I have a little bit more of a academic viewpoint of the physical effects of stress by Khan Academy. This is a really great one about moving through the physiological systems of the body and how they're affected by stress. We will be taking a more in-depth look at the effects of stress on the immune system and the nervous systems. Those are the two really big physiological systems of the body where we see stress do the most damage. But the endocrine system is also involved, the circulatory system is also involved, and so there's some discussion about that in this video, which is really great and short, so please take a look at that. And then lastly, I have a TED Talk here for you by Kelly McGonigal, who is the author of the book that we're reading, The Upside of Stress. This is a nice introduction to her field of study. This TED Talk was actually done before she wrote the book, or, I think probably as she was writing the book. And so next week, in week 3, you'll be diving into that book. You'll be reading the introduction. So this is a good preview of her work and her style. Hopefully it'll get you interested for next week when we start to dive into the introduction of the upside of stress. So that wraps up videos. Your discussion for this week centers around chapter 1 of your Harrington text. You're going to be answering these questions here. Some of them are content-based, where you're explaining concepts and theories. Some of them are adding in your own experiences. And so it'll be interesting to see what everybody writes. I want you thinking about how best to integrate the material into your responses. How do you show off your mastery of the definitions, of the models, of the theories? Give me lots of examples. And that's really going to showcase what you're learning and help me to accurately assess what you know. So the first question here is another assessment. It's Antonovsky's Orientation to Life questionnaire, which measures what he calls sense of coherence. You're going to be looking at sense of coherence and the factors it involves, comprehensibility, manageability, and meaningfulness this week in your chapter 1 reading. And the scale measures where you lie on the sense of coherence scale. Like, which one of these concepts is more prevalent for you? Usually people score higher on one versus another, and that can tell you a little bit about how that might affect your ability to cope with stress, how it might also influence your health. So you're going to be completing that scale and talking about how you scored and what that means. And then you're going to be asked to recount a time when you experienced eustress. That's the good stress. And another time when you experienced an uplift, something good that happens during your day. How are those two concepts similar? How are they different? Which type do you prefer? And why? And then lastly, we're going to talk a little bit more about generalized resistance resources and their role in resisting entropy. So again, it's Antonovsky's model and his theory about how we work through stress and the salutary effects of stress. And what that all means, you'll be reading about this week in chapter 1. So make sure to have your original responses in by Friday and your 3 responses to others in by Sunday. You do not want to be doing all of those on the same day, okay? You want to write your original response and let it sit and give your peers a chance to write their responses. And once everybody has theirs in, then you want to go through and see whose you want to respond to. And by Sunday, you'll respond to 3 of them. Okay, and remember in your responses to be using the discussion board posting rubric to help you craft your responses in a thoughtful manner. Make sure that they are inclusive of the material we've been talking about in the chapter. You can reference videos that you saw this week. You want to tie in and integrate in material from the week into your responses, both your original response and your responses to others. I also posted the Cite as You Write instructions, which will help you with citing the Harrington text or the videos or other things that you might want to cite. Okay, so I think that about covers it. Don't forget to go back and listen to the podcast here that explains some of these concepts and how to work through the material in chapter 1. And you should be all set. And again, please reach out to me this week if you have any questions, and I can hopefully answer those for you and help you navigate any content that you're needing more instruction on. Thanks, everybody.